Hey, we are back. And live, hopefully. Bloody hell, on both channels. Vertical and right. Okay. Not touching anything else. Not touching anything else. Wow.
Woohoo.
I had to restart OBS. Sorry, people.
That was fun.
That was great. Yeah. Great for Eddie, just sits here and watches me. Right, okay.
Video's not working, but it doesn't matter. Let's jump straight into the slides, shall we?
What mean
well, when on the video screen, I'm just seeing just camera shit, but don't touch anything. Let's just run with it.
No,
don't fuck with it.
Fine. You're fine, mate. You're fine. There you go. You see it now. Right.
Yeah, cool.
We are here. Right. First off, sadness. A little bit of sadness. Because Eddie Jordan died. You probably don't know him, but he was pretty famous in the Formula One world. He's had his own team. Yeah.
I'm not into Formula One, but you'd have to have had your head in the sand for the last 40 years not to know who Eddie Jordan is.
So, 76, I had a very aggressive prostate cancer that killed him in 12 months. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
He lived in South Africa, died in Cape Town, surrounded by his family.
It's also frighteningly common in this day and age, unfortunately, all that turbo cancer and safe and effective stuff.
Yeah. So, condolences to Eddie Jordan's family and everyone that knew him. So, that's the sad bit. And then, happy birthday! Happy birthday to this guy! Mr. Lavrov, it's your birthday.
Jenny John has a theory that Sergei might have dropped a match in the wrong place and therefore caused the fire at Heathrow substation.
Yeah, okay.
That then tripped their backup generators that were green.
Yeah, but we'll get to the Heathrow thing. Yeah. Right. Okay. So good evening to the troll room. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm not sure how many are still here, but it's nice to see you. But Shalini, Emma, Britmate, John, you're back. Nectaridis, Stalwart, Ray. Who else we got? I hope we didn't lose anyone in the debacle that I call the startup. Right. Okay. So that's cool. We're getting there. Right. Next slide is Healy wants Russia. Britain will not shy away from nuclear weapons. Right. Okay. So we had a little bit of a stushy on Twitter yesterday because I had the temerity to criticise our nuclear deterrent and to suggest, and I put it in commas. You know, I said I said that. Is it really a nuclear deterrent, or do we have a de facto two-key solution? And of course, jumped on by NAFO idiots, or NAFOids as you call them, who immediately asked, "Do you mean there's a US officer on board every submarine?" No, that's why it's in fucking quotes. A virtual two-key solution.
That is such a typical retarded NAFOid thing to say. Seriously,
isn't it? So I mean. There's a lot of debate about whether we'd actually have the ability to launch them if America didn't want them to go. Because remember, we didn't buy them; they're leased. We leased the missile, and we apparently produce our own warhead, right? It's strapped to it.
I mean, do we honestly think that the Americans are going to lease Trident missiles to anyone without an ability to press a button and turn the bloody thing off or make it explode midair? Or abort it, or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway,
or not launch.
So apparently, some guy who has 25 years' experience of submarining or whatever says that I'm talking shite, and that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind because I do talk shite, and I can understand that. But when I dug in, I thought, well, after I blocked him because he was an AFA person, and you've got to block them on site. You really do. Or they just gang up on you. So. After I blocked them, I started digging into it and looked at our nuclear deterrent. And you know how we have 4 submarines on the basis that one's always got to be at sea and it'll be at sea for 3 months. Well, that's a load of bullshit straight off because I didn't realise, but Vanguard, which is the oldest submarine we've got, the first one of the V subs, was in a refit that took 7 years. So it was out of service for 7 years while it was being refitted. Now, so that left 3 subs to rotate, which means they would have to increase their patrol time to 4 months. Yeah? If they were doing it, or they either had to do a 4-month patrol,
because there needs to be a sub out all the time over 12 months. So yeah,
they either had to do a 4-month patrol or they had to do 2-month patrols. So you know what I mean, during the year. So that wouldn't work because then your maintenance and refit time would be a problem because that for missile maintenance they've got to take these subs over to the States. Can't service the missiles here because they're leased, remember. So you've got to take them over to the States. You want to test the missiles, you got to take the sub over to the States.
Yeah.
So who submarines are these, really? And then we come to the big one. The Vanguard class submarines, the youngest one is 25 years old. They were built with a 25-year service life. The youngest one is 25 years old. The oldest one, the Vanguard itself, is 32 years old. This picture that you see there is a Dreadnought class, which isn't even built yet. They've laid down a keel, I believe, but that's to be the next one. They won't be ready till mid-2030s. So that's another 10 years. Yeah? So the Vanguard's going to be 42.
And I don't know if you saw the video of Starmer and visiting it, and the outside of it just did not look like something you would want to spend 4 months underwater in. No, and the thing is, again, originally the Vanguard was designed with the idea that we would be providing our own missiles, but we decided not to. We decided just to buy them. We decided just to lease them from the States, and they're just going to lease the same missiles, I think, Trident 2 for the Dreadnought. So really, 1, do we have a nuclear deterrent? 2, it quite categorically states in the mod documentation that the British nuclear deterrent would only ever be launched in concert with an American strike. Well, yeah,
so we don't really have an independent nuclear deterrent, do we?
No, we don't.
So there we go. Don't start me on the aircraft carriers, John.
But also, I mean, if ultimately, if the main, as the media likes to tell us, the main threat is Russia, do we honestly think Russia is deterred by 32-year-old missile submarines that they know damn well that their American friends would probably not let us launch anyway, and even if we did launch them independently, the Russians have most likely got anti-ballistic missile technology that would probably take them out. I mean, the S-500 is supposed to be able to take out ballistic missiles.
Think about it, right? If you are a submarine commander and you're in the British nuclear submarine and you're out there doing your bit and you get communication that Britain has been attacked and you have to launch, right? You're failed, right? Your job has failed. Do you actually go ahead and launch? Because you're going to launch at Russia, right? But you've failed because there's not going to be a Britain to come back to. What are you going to do?
They probably have to go to the Caribbean or something. That's where I'd go.
You'd go where?
Caribbean.
Caribbean, yeah. Or the Antarctica to the secret Nazi base down there.
It's too bloody cold.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Right, let's move on from this depressing subject.
Right, okay. The UK is pushing to firm up the plan for peacekeeping forces in Ukraine.
It's just fallen apart in the last few hours anyway.
Oh, has it? I'm out of date. Sorry.
Yeah, the Dear Leaders Coalition of the Willing turns out to be not so willing, and
the unwilling.
The Italians don't want to do it, the Spanish don't want to do it, the French are now having second thoughts, and and the only ones that are raring to go are the Baltic Chihuahuas, and they're about as much help as
in the teeny tiny countries.
I mean they're virtually villages.
Yeah.
And they're all rabidly anti-Russian, but
the Finnish will be desperate to go because they are so anti-Russian. It's unbelievable. For people that are 50% descended from German invaders. If you think about it, I mean, remember even that girl that was in ABBA. Her dad was a bad guy. Remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anyway, so the Finnish hate. They seem to hate Russia with with something that you can't even put your handle on. It's just they hate them so much. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's a cultural thing, and unfortunately, in the case of Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they're going to have to get over it, literally, because Russia's not going anywhere, and the West has got no hope. I mean, yeah, Estonia is really going to invade Russia. I mean,
the thing is, these former Soviet Union states, do they consider Russia just to be the Soviet Union in different clothes?
Well, maybe, but it's also a question of how much the leadership in these countries has been influenced by the West. And I mean, if we look at what the EU's done in Romania, what the US did in 2014 in Maidan Square in Kiev.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we know that these people like Stubb, who's the president, prime minister, or whatever of Finland, I mean, does he actually represent Finnish people?
Yeah, Johnny and John goes, find out what happened to the Finnish civilian population in World War II. Yeah, fair enough. But you still got to go over these things. You know, I mean, World War II was 85 years ago. 85 years ago. You know, how long are you going to bear a grudge? You know, I mean, look at Ukraine. Look at Ukraine. They spent most of the World War II fighting with the Germans against the Russians.
Yeah, and I mean, some of these countries, the Baltic states, Finland, they were some of the most enthusiastic Nazis.
Yeah.
With the Banderites in Western Ukraine. I mean, this is not, we're not talking about people who are completely innocent here. And at the end of the day, it's called realpolitik, and it's called great power politics. And it's called, if you live next door to a superpower that has large number of nuclear weapons, lots of resources, and isn't in the mood to take any shit, then you have to work with that. And it's like Bismarck always said, the best politics is to make a good treaty with Russia. Simple as. And they act like Russia is this big bad bear. Okay, maybe the Soviet Union was, but modern day Russia they just want to sell us their gas and their oil and buy Mercedes Benzes and Siemens and all this other stuff. And they don't, I mean, Europe's got nothing. It's 20 years of Western propaganda that says Russia's going to invade the rest of Europe when they're done with Ukraine.
Yeah. And
it's absolute nonsense. It's utter nonsense. It doesn't make any sense strategically. It doesn't make any sense geopolitically. It's just idiotic. It's the kind of nonsense that Western media commentators spout.
Right, moving on. The Ministry of Defence, gave us an intelligence update. Now that's an oxymoron straight away. Pardon me, but the Russian armed forces are likely sustained approximately 900,000 casualties. Brackets killed. Oh, hold on. Killed and wounded. Right, not killed and wounded. Since invading Ukraine in 2022, it's likely that 200 to 250,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. I think maybe on the high side, might not be. I'm not 100% sure. Russian President Putin and the Russian military leadership highly likely prioritise their conflict objectives over the lives of Russian soldiers. Okay, they're almost certainly prepared to tolerate continuously high casualty rates so long as this does not negatively affect public or elite support for the war, and those losses can be replaced. You could also write, and I think quite rightly, you could write the British government highly likely prioritise their conflict objectives over the lives of British soldiers. They're almost certainly prepared to tolerate a higher casualty rate, so long as that does not negatively affect their polling.
I swear to God, if the government's clearly making strategic decisions based on this absolute nonsense, because they're basically getting their information from the Ukrainians, who are corrupt liars.
Yeah. But it's even better. It's even better, right? Because it then goes on to say that Putin and his leadership probably are taking advantage of the poorer sector of the Russian states and highly likely devalue their lives compared to people that, Muscovites or whatever. Now, one could hold on. One could say the same about the UK, because the majority of our soldiers come from the north and Scotland and Wales. The Southerners don't really join the army in the same number, and when they do, they're almost always the officers. So, what's the difference in real terms? If that's right, what's the difference between that and UK? It just depends who's writing this nonsense, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and it's verifiable nonsense. Everything in there, if they actually go to half-decent intelligence sources or talk to people who are in Russia or who have a better knowledge of Russia, it's absolute bollocks. The Russian casualties are vastly overinflated and the Ukrainian casualties are vastly underinflated.
Yeah.
The Russians, men are signing up in droves and they pay them really big sign-on bonuses. One of the reasons they've got a lot of young men signing up is actually because it's one of the reasons the Russian advance has been so slow, because Russia's been going out of their way to keep their own troops safe, and that's Putin's decision, despite the fact that there are more people that are toe a harder line than Putin, that just essentially want to turn Kiev into glass and just invade the whole place and be done with it.
Yeah. Well, having said that, they unleashed hell last night on Odessa, didn't they?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. And now the other interesting thing that's happened is this Ukrainian attack on the gas transfer station at Sudza. And the thing with that is it's the last gas transit thing to get gas into Europe. So Hungary and Slovakia already are extremely pissed off with the Ukrainians about it. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those guys react.
So Ukraine are trying to cut the gas off to the people that are trying to make weapons for them. That's effectively
pretty much
what
the only friends Zelensky's got left they're in Europe, and he's essentially trying to make their lives more difficult.
Yeah,
it's just a spiteful, arrogant, narcissistic little goblin.
The mainstream media never covered the fact that, when Trump and Putin had to talk and agreed in principle to not strike at energy suppliers on either side of the border, right? The mainstream media never covered the fact that shortly after the phone call, Ukraine hit a Russian oil refinery in the south of Russia. I can't find it anywhere in mainstream media, but they did it. And then, of course, Putin hit the what's that, Slovansk or something? He hit that and knocked out the power there.
I mean, it's insane, and I'm waiting to see how the Americans react to this latest Ukrainian attack on the gas system, which would be interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see how some of the Eastern European countries like Hungary react to it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's in a state of flux, and the Ukrainians and the British are doing absolutely everything they can to sabotage any chance of peace, because our malevolent government wants to start World War III, and so they sent Prince William to frickin' Estonia in a Challenger tank because it's sending a strong message to Russia. I'm sorry, has someone told these people how many Challenger tanks Russia now has? I mean, Russia probably has more Challenger tanks than the British Army.
Did you see all the kit they took out of Kursk because the Ukrainians ran away and left it?
Well, that's exactly what I mean. They're going to have a fucking museum of Challenger tanks soon.
Well, they're certainly going to tear them all apart and find out how they work, so they find the weak spots. They've done that already.
I mean, they've done that with the Storm Shadow. They've done it with the Attackams. There isn't a single Western wonder weapon that has gone into Ukraine that the Russians haven't dealt with. It's like it causes a few problems to them for a week or two, and then they adapt, and then they just murder it all. I mean,
indeed. Right, shall we move on?
Well, yeah, no, go on. I was just going to say there's one thing that maybe people aren't aware of, that a few months ago, the Russians put their Orezhnik missile system into serial production.
Oh, did they?
And and a couple of days ago, they said that by the middle of the summer, they'll have enough Orezhnik missiles stockpiled that they'll be able to start using them as part of their attacks.
Oh, God.
And so when Orezhniks come raining out of the sky, I mean, that one attack, and they didn't even have any explosives on it, is that when they go into production, they'll actually have explosives on the warheads.
Yeah.
And that thing is absolutely frightening. And I mean, the damage that it did to the that armaments factory in Dnipro, there's still been no pictures or anything coming out of that place. I reckon it was completely leveled.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on.
Right. Okay, moving on. Heathrow closed for 24 hours. Right now, this is just absolutely a complete and utter meltdown on Twitter. Right, substation goes pop. Now, substations go pop a lot. I've seen a lot of substation files. In fact, it was
especially when you have a country with third world infrastructure.
But I was on night shift one night, and a substation went pop in Dundonald, which not only was a different town, but was across like, 5 miles of field. And you would have thought a bomb had dropped. People saw it in Kilmarnock, which is like 15 miles away. It's absolutely incredible. So substations do go pop occasionally, and they do burn, right?
Well, I did a little bit of looking after this happened, and I used Grok to do a bit of deep searching of mainstream media.
Yeah,
which is it's actually really useful, doing a quick scan of the what's on the surface. And I looked at connections between solar activity. It's all been pretty quiet from the sun, and so it just looks like it's, as you say, they sometimes go pop, and I mean they have to be maintained properly. But what's worse is that, I mean, have you got another slide for the whole Heathrow backup generator thing? Because it's only a few weeks ago that Heathrow switched off their diesel backup generators.
You can just talk about
in favour of a biomass backup generator, which failed miserably.
Well, they didn't just switch off their diesel generators; they had them removed.
Right? Well, yeah, they decommissioned them because of net zero.
Yeah. So the thing with the biomass generator was it's supposed to work in concert with the grid. Now, if you take out the substation, there is no grid.
What genius dreamed that one up? Oh yeah, we're going to have a backup generator, but we need the grid to be running for it to work.
Yeah, because they'd want the biomass generator to be feeding power back down the line as well, wouldn't they?
They're such fucking retards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
literally. I mean, it's like the whole net zero climate change. I think people who study climate science must get lobotomized in their first year. Seriously,
just that from the YouTube censorship. That's just Ed's personal opinion. It doesn't mean it's true.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's true, but I mean, you have to love Dmitry Medvedev. I mean, people say, "Oh, Putin bad," but you should be pretty thankful that Medvedev's not running Russia.
That was a classic fucking post.
Oh, he's brilliant. I think he and Putin came to an agreement that Putin would be the good cop and Dima would be the bad cop.
Yeah. So someone said on Twitter, why a plane had turned back. It was over Newfoundland, I think. It turned back to JFK because it was no chance it was going to land in Heathrow. And people were saying, why didn't they just keep going? They could have landed at Stansted or Gatwick. And I don't think people understand how many planes come in and out of Heathrow. 1,400 flights a day. It is the busiest. Is it the busiest in Europe? Certainly one of the busiest.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the busiest in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly where it is in the rankings, but the other ones. The thing is that Gatwick and Stansted have planes coming in and out.
Oh yes,
as well.
That's what I'm saying. They would just swamp the other airports. There's just no chance of that happening. That's why having airports that don't have a lot that don't have a lot of traffic in and out. It's quite a good thing, like Prestwick down the road from me, because it doesn't have an awful lot of traffic in and out, and it can take a lot of planes, but nobody that's wanting to go to London usually wants to land in Prestwick, even though
that's the other thing.
Even though the king was there, even though the king was there at one point, not at that king. I'm talking about Elvis. He landed at Prestwick.
Well, the thing is that you have to think. You can't just think about where can the plane land, but it's also what happens to the passengers once it's landed, because you can't just dump them in the middle of a field in the north of England.
Well, you can if you're Ryanair.
There you go, lads. Ryanair would just be like, here's the number for the local taxi.
When my brother was coming back from the States when the Icelandic volcano erupted. I can't remember its name. I certainly can't pronounce it.
I have met one person in my circle that was able to pronounce that, and she was Swedish.
Yeah. So my brother was coming back, and his plane got diverted to Valencia. He spent something like a week in Spain, which is, you can't knock it.
The worst places to get stuck than Valencia.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. But it's a bit of a diversion, isn't it? Whoa.
Well, no, Valencia. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's just. That's when you know they literally had nowhere else to land.
Right.
And obviously, with volcanoes, you have to be careful because of the dust in the air.
Well, yeah, because there was a British Airways 747, I believe, that flew through a volcanic ash cloud at 36,000 feet or something over, I think it was somewhere over the Pacific, and if all four engines flamed out, and they didn't get them restarted again until the thing was under 10,000 feet. They must have been kiting it. Talk about tight bottoms. I bet they had a problem with the toilets after that one. Right.
Right.
Moving on. Right. So David Curtin posts in response to this this mad TV program where the guys are trying to pretend that they were surprised about the reaction.
I was talking about in the interlude.
Sorry.
I was talking to the audience about the interlude.
Cool. So I've seen these guys on TV and they don't seem genuine at all, right? But anyway, so David Curtin posted this: where are all the lefties who usually kick off when a white actor plays the part of a black person? And of course, his post is then bombarded with people saying he's not playing the part of a black person. He's not. He's well, he is actually, because even the guy that wrote the thing said that he based it on this guy and that incident. So he is playing the part of a black person.
And it's just been turned. And I think the British government was involved in the production.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has just been turned into a demonization tool for white men. Meanwhile, they're talking about starting conscription up.
Yes.
That was what I was talking about.
I heard you saying that
during the interlude. So on the one hand, they want to demonize white kids. And on the other hand, they're going to expect them to die for their country. Good luck with that idea.
Yeah, that's going to work well.
Curtin, he's making a. I mean, obviously it's a bit facetious, but he's making a good point.
No, he is, because he's black.
If it was the other way, yeah, exactly. And I mean, ultimately, he's more allowed to make a point like that than you or I would be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's just state propaganda. It's ridiculous.
It is propaganda by any other means. Right. Operation Branchform update. Following direction from the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, criminal inquiries into 2 people arrested as part of the investigation with the funding and financing of the Scottish National Party have now concluded. One of those 2 people is Her Nippiness herself. I told you she would never be touched, and she got away with it. So, the accountant got away with it, and the guy who was her precautionary husband and chairman of the SNP is the fall guy for it, as we pretty much predicted from day one. For some reason, I've got memes next. There's not even any point in labouring over this point, is there? Because she is made of fucking Teflon, isn't she? Pardon me. Excuse me, people.
I mean, you have to wonder what kind of power she's got over the system, or
she's got something on
what,
somebody, hasn't she?
Yeah, she does. But also, I mean, fundamentally, justice in Britain is broken. It doesn't exist anymore, because people get let off that should be locked up for a long time, and people who should get a slap on the wrist get locked up for months. I mean, just move on, or I'll start ranting.
Right. Okay. Well, we're into memes, so.
It's true.
These are true.
It is. I mean, it's both of them.
We're saving the world. We drive an electric car. I love my Tesla. Elon bad. It's just, it's so obvious as well.
Yeah, I mean, memes are becoming more accurate than the nightly news.
Yeah. And so people are torching Teslas left, right, and centre, and you put this post up from this mad woman. Can you explain this? Do you think it's real?
I'm convinced that Tesla is behind the terrorist attacks on Tesla cars. No, I'm convinced Elon is behind the terrorist attacks on Tesla cars and dealerships. He's drumming up rage for MAGAs who commits insurance fraud. The cars aren't selling. Might as well torch them to create propaganda to collect the insurance money. There is no proof that I'm wrong. And I replied to her, well, you can't prove a negative to start with.
There's no proof that I'm wrong.
I mean, apparently all of the Tesla vehicles in dealerships have had their Sentry mode switched on. So in addition to being absolute brain-dead idiots, and because they're comparing it to when people boycotted Bud Light. And it's like, look, there's a difference between, because one of the anti-Elon people posted a tweet of the guy who shot a 6-pack of Bud Light with his shotgun or something, and someone replied saying there's a difference between shooting your own purchased packet of Bud Light in your garden in a safe environment, and burning down a bloody Tesla dealership.
People are ridiculous, aren't they?
But it's psychotic.
And they're burning down the chargers as well. And those are in public land.
Well, you can see, because Musk said before Doge started, before Trump was actually sworn in, he said he was going to attract a lot of enemies. Yeah. But because the only thing Doge is doing is saving the US taxpayers' money and identifying waste and fraud and corruption. And what this proves is all of the people stoking this violence, because, I mean, these brain-dead idiots aren't coming up with this shit themselves. They're being directed. And the people doing the directing are the ones that were probably sucking at the teat of USAID and all of these other nonsense programs that US taxpayers have been funding.
Actually, while you're talking about it, you had a what do you call it? A tweet that you sent through about USAID and how it had cut down the amount of publications in Ukraine. I haven't got that. I haven't got that slide.
Something like 90%.
Yeah. So almost everything in Ukraine was funded by USAID.
Almost all of the so-called independent media who were saying, "Oh, we're completely subscription funded," and no, they won't.
Apart from Patrick Lancaster, I think he is genuinely subscription funded. Have you seen him? Have you seen him wandering about the lines? Because he's with the Russians. He's off his nut. I can't watch him
Lancaster.
I can't watch him for any length of time because he's just too intense. You know what I mean?
He's also, I find his accent a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I love having people like that on the front line. I mean, Patrick is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
For getting an idea of what's going on the Russian side of the fence.
He is.
Right. And since the stupid government cancelled all RT and Sputnik and all these Russian channels that we're not allowed to see, basically because it would counteract all of the Western propaganda. And it's like Putin propaganda, Putin apologist. Bad.
The days when you used to, well, having said that, right, if you think back, they didn't have to cancel channels and things like that before because we only had 3 or 4, you know. So there really wasn't a big deal about propagandizing us because they had it easy, really, because we didn't have access to a lot of different information.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true, but they can't claim
That's
to be
true.
defenders. They can't claim to be defenders of free speech and then close down TV channels because they don't agree with them.
No, they can't.
Moving on.
That's true. That's also true.
That's true.
Or I'll start ranting
Right.
again.
So this person says the meltdowns are saying that women. So someone saying this is why Disney's going to lose $300 million or whatever. And she's going on about she's got some hair on her back. Right. This is Rachel Ziegler. Disney's not going to lose anything because of the hair on her back. They're going to lose the money because of her mouth. She can hardly shut her up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sooner Disney goes bust, the better.
Yeah,
because
although they did a good job of shutting her up, because they cancelled the UK premiere of Snow White, and they basically only let Disney's own press into the US.
Well, that's because they know.
Oh, it's
they know the roasting they're going to get.
Yeah.
And they have to have the compliant media because they'll be all fawning and woke and everything else. But it's the thing is that people see through all this bullshit and people are getting absolutely sick of it. And it's becoming completely obvious that this is not about diversity and equality.
But Hollywood seemed to be doubling down on it. Instead of stepping back from it, they seem to be doubling down.
Well, that's because a lot of them have trans their kids and they have to go along with this whole agenda because they can't. Well, no.
Right,
it's mental.
Move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Right. So this refers to last night's discussion about the structures under the pyramid. So there's a lot of debate about this technique that was used not actually being right, and that people are seeing things that aren't there. So there is this thing, there is this thing that the stuff is being misinterpreted, and there isn't really structures there as such. It's just noise in the machine,
Well, it's
a possibility.
Absolutely. I mean, this is how science works. Is one scientist posits a theory, and presents it to the scientific community, and then other scientists will try and replicate it and critique it and pick holes in it. And I mean, we can't say, oh, there's massive structures under the pyramid with one study, one set of measurements, one scan or whatever. I mean, there has to be, it's raised some possibilities that there could be something there. I mean, there's long been stories about things under the pyramids and things under the Sphinx and hidden chambers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there has.
But the simple fact is that science should be, archaeologists should be chomping at the bit to get more science out there and get some, I don't know, ground penetrating radar or whatever different tools that they can bring to bear on the problem. And let's answer the question. But more often than not, they don't even want to answer the question.
No, it's not even that. The Antiquities Office in Egypt seem to be particularly, afraid of letting people dig or discover things to do with the ancient Egyptians. I think it's, I don't know.
Well, I think maybe the problem is that they're worried that people might find out that the pyramids weren't built by the ancient Egyptians, which gives them a bit of a credibility issue.
Yeah, right. Now,
but we need to keep monitoring that one.
Yeah, we will.
It'll be interesting.
The next one is one I covered during the week in one of my daily briefings with a South African science team that went to Antarctica. One of them has apparently gone nuts and is threatening violence to the rest of them. Now,
I saw that.
And they're apparently macaroons for 10 months unless I think the nearest base is 186 miles away, but it's now the winter.
There's a German research station, which is the nearest evac.
So let's have a look. Scientists trapped in Antarctica plead for help as violence breaks out. So the team leader has apparently been assaulted as it is. And other people are worried for their personal safety. So one of them has gone nuts. Now, it's a particularly diverse crew.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I don't think skin colors necessarily mean a damn. I mean, the thing is that there was a failure before these people even got to Antarctica, because
Yeah.
one of the things that scientists who are going to spend, particularly the winter in Antarctica, they all have to be psych tested and put through
Yeah.
a barrage of tests, just like technically astronauts. I know people are going to scoff at the very notion of an astronaut now, but I mean, if you're going to coop people up for 10 months in a snowy place where there's no...
Yeah, so the question I have to ask is, look where the science station is, right? Now, imagine the depths of Antarctic winter when it's pitch black, blowing a snowstorm and a gale, and you have to go out and get something, and you maybe take a step in the wrong direction. Why would you put it so close to the cliff edge?
There could be any one of a number of reasons why they put it there. I mean, it's...
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm not saying it does not look like a sensible place for an Antarctic research station, but there may be justifiable reasons why they put the station there. I don't know what went wrong with the crew evaluations, because...
Well, the next thing it does is this an outbreak of the thing?
Maybe.
Is this? Have they discovered aliens?
I mean, it's... Occam's razor would suggest not, but I mean, obviously, this is a show for speculation at times. Anything's possible. I mean, it could have been... I don't know. The Earth's magnetic field is particularly weak at the poles, and if you spend any time at the poles, you're exposed to higher levels of cosmic rays and solar radiation and stuff, because of the electromagnetic fields funnel those things into the polar areas, so you get a higher dose of radiation and stuff. I mean,
well, maybe that's what's
something
gone
to do
wrong.
with it.
Maybe that's flipped them, pushed them over the edge. I'm seeing him. Do we actually know who? Do we actually know who it is?
Personal issue. No, I was looking, and
so it could be one of the three female. Well, I'm assuming that in this day and age, can I even assume that there are three females on that expedition? I bet. See, this is the problem.
Dangerous assumption there.
But well, I'm looking at the pictures, but this is the problem. You put female men in a tin can for 10 months. Something's going to go wrong at some point, because somebody's going to get it on, and then they're going to fall out, and you know what I mean. It's all going to go awry.
One of them has an affair or something.
Exactly.
You get love triangles, and I mean, it's ultimately it could be any one of a number of things. But the South African Antarctic people, like the ones that organise the expedition, need to sort out their crew screening.
Right. We need to take a slight break here, because a challenge has been thrown out by Britmate, right? Because he has said that the thing is the best Carpenter movie ever. What's your thoughts on that one? Do you like John Carpenter as a director?
Yeah, I do.
But the best Carpenter movie ever, The Thing. Because there's strong competition. Halloween. Just saying, throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't know. I think that The Thing was just really original.
It was.
And well shot as well. The cinematography and stuff in that.
The practicals are fantastic as well.
Yeah, so...
But he's never seen Halloween. How can you not? They Live was John Carpenter, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Ghost of Mars, although that's probably not one of his best, but I loved it. I just love his music. His music is brilliant. Big Trouble in Little China was great. Prince of Darkness is good. Prince of Darkness is one of the creepiest freaking movies that isn't really that horrific, you know. But it's so creepy. What was the other one? What was the other one that he did? Did he do? Oh, he did the fog. Did the fog as well. That was quite a good one. Yeah.
Next slide.
It's certainly up there. Certainly up there. Right, moving on. It's had enough of that chat.
Well, no, it's not so much that, but I'm conscious of the fact that we started
Go on,
20
Ed.
minutes late. Oh, this one. This is so satisfying. This has to be one of the things that made me smile this week, and it's a tradesman in Australia saying that former Australian Premier Daniel Andrews can't get anyone to work on his land or properties, and now some hotels, along with other establishments, are turning him and his family away from their venues.
Oh,
I mean, Dan Andrews, he was the Premier of New South Wales, was it?
Was it Victoria? Yeah.
Was it in Victoria? One of them. Anyway, he was a Premier of one of the Australian states that had particularly hard fascist, evil lockdowns during COVID.
I can't get over the fucking Australians.
And he deserves every single thing he gets. I hope he's not able to ever find another painter or decorator or plumber or carpenter. And I hope he's never able to drink in another bar. The man is evil. Literally. And
karma is a bitch.
I was screwing around with a face mashing tool years ago now. And I realized that if you use AI to face mash Nadeem Zahawi and Daniel Andrews, the result is this psychotic zombie chipmunk. It's really creepy and scary.
Right, okay.
Moving on.
Right, moving on. France is set to issue a survival manual to households across the country, warning citizens how to respond to an invasion or any other imminent threat. The dramatic move comes as tensions rise in Europe and fears grow over Russia's aggressive tactics. The new 20-page booklet, reportedly packed with 63 measures, will advise the French on how to protect themselves and their families in the event of armed conflict, natural disasters, industrial accidents, or even a nuclear leak.
Nudge, nudge, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know. Break out more wine and cheese and just kick back and have a 2-hour lunch.
Well, that's the thing about modern Western society, that the whole keep calm and carry on thing has gone out of the bin, and it's now freak out and panic. I mean, and it's all just about control. Macron wants to do his whole little Napoleon thing and go back into Russia.
Yeah, you see, people get confused about France, though, because I think a lot of them visit Paris and think that's France, and it's not. France is a big country. It's 3 times the size, 3.5 times, or 2.5 times the size of the UK. It's huge. It's only got the same population. But most of it's in Paris and the other couple of big cities. But see, once you get out into rural France, the French are like so fucking laid back. It's like being in Louisiana. You know, they're just so laid back. And everybody has a 2-hour lunch. They even have a car that you can drive once you've lost your license after you've been caught drunk driving. No, seriously, they do. It's called sans permis, because you don't need a driving license to drive it. See, after 2 o'clock, do not drive for at least a couple of hours, right? If you can avoid it. One, it's usually dead hot anyway, but don't drive after 2 o'clock because everybody else is pissed. Seriously. And they all go to their bed dead early. See, when it gets dark about 8:30 or something like that, they're all in their bed. They're weird.
Well, it doesn't sound like a bad life to me.
Mm.
But it's just, I mean, it's just Macron. I mean, he's clearly as hated in France as Starmer is in the UK, and I don't.
Yes.
I mean, he's just an awful, nasty, creepy little weirdo. And I don't even get me started on his husband.
So Ray says it's a short book. It just says surrender. I've all said this only once. Right.
Eat some cheese and then surrender.
Surrender. And the Italians are coming out with one as well. It's called Runaway. Runaway fast. Right, there we go.
Dear.
The German government will propose Bok as a candidate for the post of President of the United Nations General Assembly.
Just, you couldn't. I mean, this makes as much sense as having Kaya Kallas, stunning and brave Kaya Kallas, as Kaka Kallas as EU head EU diplomat. I mean, Baerbock is a disaster area. She's just how is it that these people fail and then get promoted and they go on to
well, you get apparently you get promoted to your level of incompetence if you see yourself through.
Yeah, and I mean, fortunately, the UN General Assembly, President of the UN General Assembly is essentially sitting in a chair and eating in expensive New York restaurants and banging a gavel, probably.
Yeah, and making plans for alien contact.
Well, yes, the Germans probably wanted to get her out of Germany and put her somewhere where she couldn't do too much damage.
Yeah, right, moving on. It was with great regret that I have to report I can't stop fucking laughing. I need to stop laughing. A migrant died while trying to cross the channel on a tyre. I can't take it. I'm going to have to move on. Whew. Right, sorry. The Syrian government are now dropping flowers and leaflets on Damascus, so I suppose that's a bit better than going door to door and killing all the Christians. Yeah? You muted, my dear man. Did you mute yourself? I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, aren't they still doing the head chopping of the Alawites and the Christians?
Well, I thought they were, but apparently they're now dropping flowers and leaflets on them.
Oh, right, so sorry, we chopped a load of people's heads off and here's a flower.
My bad.
I mean, it's serious. Just it's tragic. It's an absolute disaster, and people think, oh yeah, it's great that Assad's gone. You would rather have this unstable,
they were warned,
cleansing Sharia law.
They were warned. I mean, they were warned, weren't they?
And I mean, to be honest, given what happened and the way that Assad hightailed it out and stuff, I think there's as in the fullness of time, as people publish memoirs and autobiographies and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more going on here. And Turkey is up to his, Erdogan is up to his bloody neck in all of this. Yeah, I don't like it. And I think he made a major miscalculation supporting those guys and thought he was going to be able to have more control over them than he does.
Yeah, and the Yanks, they supported them as well, didn't they?
Yeah, and also obviously the Israelis. I mean, they're right up to their eyeballs in it.
Yeah. Right, moving on. This is the friendly face of China. It's always good to see this. Why do these people even come on and say things like? See, this is the Chinese not having a filter.
Is it scientifically feasible to depopulate India in 48 hours? Okay.
Yeah,
is that tweet still up there?
Because yeah, that's fairly new. That was only 9 hours ago because I only pulled that out today. Yeah, so you can do some digging after the show. Right, let's move on. Oh, here's one from our friend David. So Stock Common Pass says, on 18th February, we filed an FOI to the Met Police seeking data on the amount of legal requests that were made to X, i.e. Twitter, by the Met between 29th of July and the 31st of December 24 connected to the Southport unrest. Unsurprisingly, the Met shut us down using FOI exemptions, i.e. costs and set limits. Now, I think there's a set limit of 450 quid. So if it's going to cost more than 450 quid for someone to dig out the information, then they can, deny it. Now, that's bullshit because this is all recorded on computer, and they're talking about the PNC not having these fields. That's bullshit. That's what the Met are saying is actual bullshit. I've been in the College of Policing. I've worked with the police for 30 odd years. I've worked with the PNC. That's bullshit. They could have had that information in 10 minutes.
Well, but this is how they get around freedom of information requests. It's that duplicitous nonsense that we always get from the government, where they go, "Oh no, we have freedom of information laws." Yeah, but you still have the ability to withhold stuff that you don't want. I mean, it's like trying to get information out of Downing Street about what Starmer and Bill Gates talked about, or what Starmer and Larry Fink talked about, and they'll stonewall you.
Britmate's asking, didn't X reject just over half? Well, I think they rejected about 300 out of over 800 or something. So they did reject quite a lot of them. But it's not hard for the Met to get the information. The police thrive on statistics. You know, they have the whole departments that just collect statistics and pump them out there. So the police and the government thrive on statistics. They know this information like that. It's just an excuse not to provide it.
Of course it is, because we don't have any real freedom of speech or justice or anything like that in this country.
To be fair, that's why we should support organisations like Stop Common Passport, because I know he started for a particular reason, but generally it's basically a free speech organisation now. You know, free speech is important, and we can't afford to lose it.
Free speech is vital. You can't have a properly functional democratic society without free speech. I mean, I don't think you can have a properly functional society without free speech, period.
And this is what pisses me off about social media platforms. You know who I'm looking at now. But it really does, because the problem is, if you don't get both sides of the story, how are you supposed to make up your mind? And even if you only get one side of the story, how are you supposed to be a rational human being? How are you supposed to be able to tell right and wrong, good and bad, if you don't get exposed to both good and bad? You know, the social media it's turning people into the people out of Demolition Man. Demolition Man is becoming more and more like a documentary. You should rewatch it. Have you seen it?
I've seen it loads.
Yeah, it's a fucking documentary. It really is.
Yeah.
I still don't know how the three seashells work, though.
Me neither. I don't think I want to know either. In fact, let's move on, because the next slide is fun.
Right, you go for it.
Oh, this is. I mean, I don't know a huge amount about it, but India's going after the Open Society Foundation, and I think getting rid of George Soros out of society would be a really good thing. I'm not saying anyone should do anything bad to him.
I thought he had retired.
But
he's still there.
Well, the thing is that it's now spawn of Soros. I think his name is Alex Soros, who happens to be married to Huma Abedin, who's a former deputy of Hillary Clinton's, and is massively implicated in various online conspiracy theories that we're not going to go into because we'll get into trouble. Yeah, I'm thinking pizzas. But yeah, so India's making. I mean, I don't particularly like Modi, but any country that gets Soros and his Open Society Foundation out of their fucking countries is doing a good thing.
They're trying to get rid of Modi, aren't they?
I don't blame them. I mean, he's not,
because that Nagpur thing was a bit. That was was that not kind of aimed at trying to get rid of Modi?
Well, he's kind of a fascist, so
yeah. Anyway, Soldier said that Macron has a point to make, since Trump said the French would be speaking. Well, it wasn't Trump that said that. It was Vance, wasn't it? That said the French would be speaking German if it wasn't for the US. Yeah. I think it was our friend JD. Yeah. Right. Okay, moving on. Why would you consider giving them anything ever again? The Ferguson shipyard misses out on the new Kilmark ferry order. Oh, I'm not surprised. I mean, the last two took 6 years longer than they were supposed to, and overran by, I think, 200%. They went from like 93 million for 2 to 150 million for one.
Why does that always happen in these public procurement projects?
Because they're corrupt as fuck, mate.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like you need, I don't know, everything in this country just seems broken.
To be fair, all countries are much the same. There's broken parts about it. Nobody's got a perfect society, you know.
Well, no, but I don't know. Britain seems to do certainly in Europe, Western Europe. We seem, I mean, just on the basic things like roads and public transport and all of this kind of thing.
Here.
It's, I mean, the roads in Brighton are just. I was taught to drive by my dad in Zambia, and most of the driving lessons were more dodging potholes than actual driving. And it's like that here now.
Exactly like that here, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a few of them on the way to work that you really have to watch out for them, or if you hit them too fast, you'll do serious damage to your vehicle. And it pisses me off because every single year we have to spend money on an MOT to make sure that our cars are roadworthy. Where is the fucking test for the government making sure the goddamn roads are car-worthy?
You said that before. And, I think you said this last week.
Well, why can't we get a refund? We should get money off the MOT if the roads aren't up to scratch. It's bullshit.
You're right, mate. Right. On you go. You explain why this is a nonsense statement.
No, I think I'll let you take this one.
It's your freaking slide. You put it up there.
Well, no, I know, but it's something that I'd never considered. That this is back to the were these people actually in space? Because people are pointing out that,
I can tell you,
the astronaut came back with a suntan.
We'll get to that one. That one's different. But we'll get there. I don't think she's got a suntan.
But the thing is that the period between re-entry and when it actually touches down.
Yeah,
it gets really hot in the upper atmosphere, and then the top of the atmosphere is really cold.
Yeah,
so the whole thing cools down. So of course it's not going to be sizzling hot by the time it hits the sea.
And remember, these ceramic heat shields are fantastic at conducting heat away from the. Have you ever seen aerogel? You can hold it. You can hold it like a fairly thin layer of it, and have a blowtorch, you can have an oxyacetylene torch on the other end of it, and it won't let the heat through to your hand because they are fantastic at dissipating heat. So that's just, it shows the guy's thinking, but his thinking's pretty flawed.
Yeah, the thing about Jicky is that he's really good when it comes to biomedical science, and
he's not good at this thing. This is physics.
Yeah.
And remember, at 30,000 feet, it's minus 60 degrees out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Nice try, mate. Nice try, but debunked.
Possibly spend a bit more time thinking about a tweet before you post it.
Yeah. This one. Why does Ray say, I bet Ed drives a Mini? I guarantee he doesn't. He won't drive a Mini.
No, I don't drive a Mini, but I do drive a Corsa.
Yeah, okay, but you don't drive a Mini. You wouldn't drive a Mini. Good God, man, no. I tell you, if you ever think about driving a Mini, really make sure that you know your mechanic, because you're going to get really friendly with them.
My little Corsa is super reliable, super cheap, no electronics. Well, the bare amount of electronics to be useful, but no, it's great. I like old cars. So
I think this was used on Belgrade. This is
I agree.
I spoke about this earlier on in the week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, all of the reports that I was seeing coming out of Belgrade were consistent with the effects of the LRAD. Yeah,
and it was a completely non-violent demonstration. There was no need for it. Just absolutely ridiculous. I think they just wanted to test it out, didn't they?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe after all of the colour revolution stuff that's been happening in Romania and Moldova and all of these other places, it's entirely possible that the government would be overly heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Europe is a mess in a nutshell.
Right. Here we go. This is one of yours. This is tremendous.
This is up there in the top 5 of the funniest things I've seen all week. Is that the Russian troops from the Bessie PSI unit, specifically Baba Yaga, which is quite a name for
isn't it?
A unit. They found video footage on a drone's memory card, and the recovered footage showed people working on the drone with the building visible in the background. And of course, they're now very clever at doing geolocation and stuff. So I suspect that this building may well not be around for much longer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's got a big X on it.
This is like nerd levels of OPSEC. I mean, honestly, you'd think these bright guys working on a drone would. I
don't think they're that bright. I really don't.
Oh no, obviously not.
Yeah. Right, moving on. This is from Sabina Hossenfelder, who's a German physicist, and she's got a YouTube channel. I find her stuff generally pretty good. She makes the odd mistake, but she's pretty good. But this one's a cracker. New study estimates that the carbon footprint from Canadians adding gender pronouns to their email signatures may contribute to the premature death of one person per year globally.
So all I can say is that if this works as a way to get people to stop using pronouns in their email signatures, or just stop using email signatures, period, and are not text. It was when, I mean, email signatures were fine when they were just a piece of text.
Yeah.
But when people started using images and all kinds of other crap, it just becomes a pain in the arse.
See, when I worked for the council, I get fed up with email, right? Because people were treating it as instant messaging, and to me, that's not how email is. So I put an email signature on that said I check my email at 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Right? If you need to contact me urgently between those hours, you know how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, good.
Oh dear.
Right.
But yeah, let's.
We're in that crossover point now between the memes and the serious stuff. So this was apparently serious. European leaders taking off their jackets in a united show of support for President Zelensky. Have you ever heard so much nonsense? I don't understand why the left picked on this as such a thing, because would you not wear a suit? See, if I was going to see the president, I'd actually go and buy a suit. I really would.
I
like what Britmate says, Phil Monty looks a bit shit now.
The thing is that Zelensky is an actor.
Yeah.
And so he's basically been playing a part. And his whole, like, commando nonsense, it's just, this is not how serious world leaders dress.
No.
And he's just an arrogant little shit, but he's not actually as bad as the other idiots.
Oh.
Sorry, I got a scratchy throat this evening. It's just this virtue signaling, pointless, meaningless gestures. Is they've got no weapons to give him, they've got no money to give him, they haven't got any troops to give him, they can't give him air defense missiles, but they can take off their jackets. I mean, fuck off.
Yes, Ray says he just repaired a workmate's drone. He promptly flew it straight into a building. Yep, okay, that sounds about right. Britmate asks, Mia Farah, isn't that Woody Allen's ex? Yeah, I believe it is. Rosemary's Baby and all that, Mia Farah. Is she 12? Who, Mia Farah? No, she's more like, she must be like 72 or something. I don't know. What age is Mia Farah now?
Aye.
If it's real Mia Farah. But, right, here we go. So, that guy looks smug, doesn't he?
What the fuck? Where do you find these stories? Jesus.
Right, yeah, that's pretty horrific, yeah. Okay, but real life story now, okay? Stories from the days when I was a cop. So
I don't think I want to know.
So we used to go around. I mean, on the night shift you get bored, so you'd go around the nursing homes and you would go and visit the people that were working night shifts. You know, like nursing homes and children's homes and things like that. And this was in days when everybody worked together. You know, if you were all night workers, we would wander by on a cold evening, go into the nursing home and have a coffee and they usually give you a scone or something like that to keep you warm. And one night we were in the children's home because we'd taken a runaway back, and the girl said, "Do you want a coffee?" And I goes, "Nah, no thanks, I'm fine. I don't drink. I try not drink coffee in the night shift." And she goes, "Probably a wise choice." And I'm going, "Why?" And she goes, "We've just found out that one of the little bastards had been masturbating into the milk every morning." And then giggling. They wondered why he was sitting giggling while the girls were eating their cornflakes. Disgusting. These people are disgusting.
I mean, what kind of
people
person?
like that. People like that. See that face there, that smirking face. People like that. They do that.
This is when my grandmother used to say, "Spare the rod, spoil the child." This is what she was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Right. This is your one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, this one.
It was mine as well, but yeah.
The conversation between Putin and Trump has been going on for more than 2 hours. They've now reached the Stolypin agrarian reform and are finally approaching 1917 Bolshevik revolution.
I think this is a reference to the history lesson that he gave Tucker.
Yeah, it's also that meme that I mentioned last week, which is the two bubbles with Tucker talking to Putin and Tucker talking to Lavrov. And when he says, "What do you think of the West?" to Putin, Putin gives this long essay. And then he says the same question to Lavrov, and Lavrov just says, "Morons."
Yeah.
But Olga Basova, she's...
what does she actually look like? Do you know?
I have no idea.
You've got a crush on. You've got a mental crush on her, don't you?
No.
No, mental. I mean,
crush on her. She's one of my favorite Twitter accounts. But
exactly. You've got
a favorite Twitter account.
You have an intellectual crush on her. You do, and that's it. Just admit it. Just say yeah. Just say yeah. No. You're right, John. You're right, John.
No, I'm not admitting it. Just because you want me to.
Yeah, I'm right. Anyway, carry on. What the fuck is that? That is the stuff of nightmares, and yet it's just a dog.
Yeah. Someone captured a dog when it was coming out of a lake. just one of those moments that, yeah.
It's something out of Fortnite.
Yeah, and you absolutely could not set this kind of shot up. It's just one of those once in a blue moon shots. But the tweets around it, it's like someone took a picture of a dog and now I can't sleep. It does look like something out of a video game. Yeah. Like, I don't know, Bigfoot's mother or something, or a werewolf.
We could use that encrypted, couldn't we? Right. So talking about parenting and needing a wee bit more, spare the rod and whatever. This is quite funny, I thought. "Mum, can I sleep with you tonight? I'm very scared." "No, sweetie, I can't risk having the monster following you into my room and killing me."
Oh, dear.
Right. "The internet used to come through the phone. It sounded like screaming robots." "Sure, Grandma, let's get you to bed."
Putin!
No, hold on.
It did. Okay, enough. Yeah, thank you.
you go. Connected. The connection isn't. We have achieved. We've achieved dial-up.
And yeah, if you know what that sound was, you're old.
Yeah, you are.
But it does sound like two screaming robots.
It does. It does. Right. When you spend 9 months stuck in space and come back with a tan in your hair, it died. It died. But that's not a tan. I think if you look at the other picture, you can see that it's not really a tan. It's just the way the picture's been coloured. But who did the roots? Because I kept saying, obviously our first visit's going to be to the hairdresser to get her roots done. And yet she turns up and how come her roots are not that bad? Does she have hair dye sent up?
Well, someone on Twitter said that it was basically because her hair was all up in that space picture, and that if she'd done the same thing with her hair as it was, that there's the outside and the underneath, and it's all hairdressery stuff. But
I don't think,
according to someone I saw on Twitter, that's not so weird, but it does beg some questions.
It does. You have to ask the question.
But then every time anything happens that's space related,
yeah,
there's always people that jump on it and say, "Oh, this is fake. This was in a swimming pool. This is just NASA saying bullshit." And I mean, I'm not necessarily in the we went to the moon camp, but I do think that we have astronauts on a space station above the Earth. I don't think all of that is a swimming pool.
Yeah, I think low Earth orbit is definitely achievable.
And I mean, you can get a telescope, take a picture of the bloody thing.
And meanwhile, in Africa, some real fucking really screwed up people out there, isn't there? Sending shit like this to these poor orphans. Right, because wait till you see the next one, mate. The next one's fucking.
Who the hell is Sharon Matthews?
She was the girl that disappeared, and remember she was actually hiding under her fucking mum's bed or something. Do you remember there was a whole search for her, or there was a whole thing about it? But yeah, imagine sending one of the T-shirts into the fucking charities that get sent stuff. Well, you know that stuff does actually get there sometimes.
Well, I always knew it did because it killed the Zambian textiles industry. Because Zambia used to have, back in the
great
60s
job.
and 70s.
Great job, charity.
Well, that was the thing they did. Zambians used to call it salaula, and they'd basically get these big shipments of clothes from Europe and America, and it meant that they weren't interested in local textiles and fabrics, and
see, you forget these knock on, and this is one of the points I used to make during lockdown. You know, when we weren't allowed to buy clothes. You know, remember you weren't allowed to buy clothes, right? So my point was, all these people that are making jeans in India, that suddenly nobody's buying them anymore, they're not getting laid off. They're not getting paid furlough. They were just let go. And suddenly they're not earning any money at all because we're not allowed to buy jeans. How many people did we fucking put into poverty by lockdowns? You know?
I mean, lockdowns were...
they were an abomination. Abomination, mate.
Ill thought out, monstrous, horrible way to try and get loads of people to inject something that they wouldn't otherwise go anywhere near.
Yeah.
And let's move on before I start.
Well, I've only got one slide left. And remember, it was St. Patrick's Day last week. Well, this week. And I'd just like to remind you that everyone is a little Irish on St. Patrick's Day, except the Scottish. We are still Scottish.
I do think it's, particularly America. I mean, there was a great meme of fish in the Chicago River on St. Patrick's Day, and they all go green because obviously I don't know what sort of dye they put in the river. But the
it's
Americans take
environmentally
St.
friendly.
Patrick's Day more seriously than the Irish do.
Yeah, they do.
But I mean, what a bloody week! It's just it seems to get more and more crazy every time we do a show.
It does indeed, mate. It does indeed. So after a ropey start, I think we got there in the end. Not been our best show, but not been our worst.
Well, no, I mean, we, like you said, what counts that we got there in the end, and we're all doing this on a shoestring budget and don't have a producer and stuff. So
exactly. And if you want to help out as a producer, hit me up. If you want to donate something, drop it onto ko-fi.com/Sergeant Grumpy. And as ever, it's been great. Hasn't it? Has it been great?
Yeah, it's been fun.
Is it great for you, Ed?
It's been good for me.
And it was great for you.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink, cause I think I'm going